All right. Happy February, everybody. I'm Sherry Shish with Powered by Quilting. And this is month 2 of the Wish Block of the Month, which is this lovely quilt. Also here. And then I actually got my quilt top back, my sample back from the shops. So this is the quilt that we're making. Ta-da! It's massive. It ends up being 72 by 84. Ta-da! It's beautiful, right? So last month, you can go check month 1 videos, and we made 2 of these blocks. We made, I believe, this block and this one right here. Let's put a string on this. This month is month 2, and we're going to also make 2 more blocks. We are going to be making this block here, right here, and we're also going to be making this block right here. Okay? And notice how there's some nice little connection points to the blocks that are next to it. Alright, let me actually get this out of the way and we will get started on what we need. So for this quilt, you will need obviously the pattern, or these blocks. You'll need the pattern, you'll need fabric A, fabric D, and fabric E, which is A, D, and E for the quilt that we're doing. If you would like to make this exact quilt with white background, which is the one that I'm making on stream here, I do have a couple quilt kits on my shop, so link below if you'd like to get those. And then also the PDF pattern of this quilt top, or the quilt pattern, is below as well. So let's get started. We have all of my blocks kind of cut, but we're going to do a couple things for the demo. Oops. Also, for the pattern, forgot to mention this. You'll want pages 5, 6, and 7 for month 2. And this will give you kind of your cutting instructions for each of the quilt's pieces, the different fabric types. And then it'll also give you secondary cutting instructions. So, for example, on your, there's 2 different sizes that you're going to need quarter square triangles. So I'm going to show you how to cut those. I already cut a couple of them, as you can tell here. But I want to make sure that you know how to do this. So in order to do quarter square triangles, what you're going to do, let me double check. Is use a ruler after you've cut your block. So if you're using with a fabric, you cut them, you cut your block, you want to cut both of them at the same time, because then the fabrics don't move, okay? But you can stack if you want, but they do shift a little bit, so I do just like cutting these here. I will go from corner to corner on your block, your square, and you'll cut across. If you have a 45-degree angle line on your ruler, you can use that. Without moving your piece, you're going to do the other diagonal to diagonal as well, okay? And it looks like that. Okay, so nothing moved until it's completely done. And now you have nice quarter square triangles. You do that for that size, and then you do it for a different size as well. So you have a smaller white background one that you're going to do the same thing, where you're going to align the side with your 45-degree angle. Don't pick it up, don't move it, don't touch it. And you're going to go on the other side as well to cut 2 X's, or the X to get your quarter square triangle. Ta-da! All right. And then there's also one size of, shoot, did I? Did I cut the wrong piece? I might have cut the wrong piece. Whoops. Whoopsies. I don't know what I cut. Anyways, I thought that was right. Okay, well, we'll figure it out if that was wrong. So follow the instructions on the instructions on the which one, because I thought I double checked that one. But I think I might have cut the wrong size square. I did, didn't I? Because there is nothing in that size. Whoops. Okay, well, I'll have to recut these because that wasn't right. Where did this one come from? This was the square cut in half. All right, my bad. So white does not get cut in quarters because that doesn't happen. We're going to have to recut those later. That's not a big deal. But we have a couple of the white squares that do need to get cut in half. My bad. Be helpful if I didn't just do this on Twitch. Where you cut those in half, and we will use those later. So what I recommend, do not cut all the squares out and then figure out to remeasure which ones you cut in half or in quarters. Make sure you're cutting them and then doing your subcuts right after you cut them, or else you'll end up doing exactly what I did and being like, oh, it's this one. Whoops. That's not quite right. All right, so for the first things that we're going to do, we are making hourglass blocks here, okay? So one of the things that we do is make half square triangles. So we have a couple of them that I'm going to ask you to do. We have fabric D in background, D in A, and D in E that we're going to do. I'm going to make this one here. And essentially, you're going to do right sides together. And you can make this in two different ways. Okay, so you have these pairs, and these. All right. You can essentially draw the diagonal down your background square and sew a 1/4 inch on either side. You can use clearly perfect angles. Either one is correct to do for the method that we would do. I'm going to draw a line on this one because it's slightly larger than what my clearly perfect angles will do. So if I set this up for clearly perfect angles, I can't see the bottom edge. Clearly perfect angles works really, really well for slightly smaller pieces. Okay, so we are going to do that. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of the block. So I'm going to use my foot, my 1/4 inch foot, to follow the line that I just have drawn. Okay. Turn it around to sew the other side. Also, you gotta love when you screw up live on stream on a YouTube video that's going to be around until, whenever I decide to take down later. All right, now we're going to cut on the line that we drew, and we're going to press everything to fabric fabric D. So all of our hourglass blocks for the half square triangles that we make for them are all going to get pressed to fabric D. I made some magic because we have those that we just made, and then I made a set of the other ones as well. And now what we're going to do is we are going to take a D and E and a background D and put them right sides together and make sure that your fabric Ds do not fall on top of each other, right? So D and E, background and D, like so, okay? And what we're going to do here is we are going to make an hourglass block. We are going to essentially draw a line down here that's perpendicular to the line that you sewed, and then sew a 1/4 inch on either side to make an hourglass block that looks like so. And we're going to make 2 of them. Okay, so same deal. Take your ruler, draw a line down the center. Okay, and we're going to sew on either side of those. And then we're also going to take a background, non-background, sorry. We are going to do a D and E and D and A. So something like that. Same thing here. We are not going to have the background, the D's, on top of each other. So they're going to look like so when we finish. Okay? And then you draw a line down the center. Okay. I don't know why that was so goofy. We are going to redraw that for a second because that was not a good line. Okay. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides. Okay, we have one. One thing I want to make sure that you remember, which I forgot to say, is that since these are hourglass blocks, we do not trim our half square triangles. We don't trim until the end. If we were making hourglass blocks, we would have trimmed our blocks, but since we are, or if we were making half square triangles, we would have trimmed our blocks, but since we're making hourglass blocks, we are not. We are not trimming until we have now pressed these open and or using our clearly slotted trimmers once we have made our hourglass blocks. So what we're going to do here is we are going to cut these apart into 2 hourglass blocks. I'm going to show you how to trim with your clearly slotted trimmers. So if you have clearly slotted trimmers, you will need trimmer A for this, okay? The nice thing about this is you have your seam line that you're going to be normally aligning to, and you have your center line. So that center line is your center stitch line and your line here. So you're going to align both the center and the seam line that you just sewed to cut your sides and your dog ears. Okay? I'm going to do that one more time with the other one, and then I'm going to show you how to do a trim cut or a trim with normal rulers. Okay. All right. So those 2 are there. We are now going to go ahead and actually press all of these open. So we have the 2 that we trimmed. We don't need those anymore. We have the 2 that we trimmed with our clearly perfect slotted trimmers. And then these we're going to trim with our rulers. Now these go to 4.5 inches square. So if you have a 4.5 inch square ruler, this is the easiest way to do it, honestly, because you have your center, you have your diagonal line that you have, and you just trim all the way around it, like so. So I line the center with the center of the hourglass. I line my 45-degree line on my ruler with one of the 45-degree lines, and I'm trimming all the way around, like so. Now, say like I don't have a 4.5 inch ruler, what the heck do I do? Okay, well, say like you have a normal 6.5 inch ruler. So if you don't have a 4.5 inch, that's fine. 6.5 inch, this is how you would do it. 4.5 inches square is 2.25. So what you're going to want to do is look at 2.25 and say, okay, that 2.25 is going to be on the center, 2.25 and 2.25, and then you want your diagonal line that you have on your 6.5 inch ruler on that diagonal line. You cut 2 sides like so, because you have your 2 1/4 in the middle. And then you're going to go and say, all right, here's my 4 1/2 to 4 1/2. My diagonal line is there. And here is my hourglass. All right. Ta-da. All right, so we are going to put these aside right now. And we are going to do a 4 patch now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 of our fabric E and 2 background pieces. And we are going to make a 4 patch like so. Okay. In this, it's a grid. So I essentially just wet piece all of this. You could theoretically just sew them together, cut them, and rotate and iron. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put column 2 over on column 1 like so, and I'm going to sew down here and web piece it where this chain piecing right here does not get cut. Allows me to do now is I can press everything to the print fabric. Like so, and it looks like I have a block, just they're kind of separated, right? So now I can essentially put them right sides together and sew down that longer edge. Now I just press this open and we have a perfect 4 patch. We're going to repeat this and we're going to have 4 patches for our block. Okay? So we're going to magically have 3 more. I essentially have written the pattern where we're going to make more pieces, but I'm going to jump to the end of this block, or this block pattern, and lay out my block that we're going to be making, okay? So we have our 4 patches that we have here. We are going to then have one of these squares in the middle, like so. And then we're going to essentially have, oh shoot. Did I screw this up? I did not. Okay. I thought I did for a second, and I was about to get really worried, and I was like, wait a second, what just happened? I did not screw this up. This is what the block looks like. All right. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is right. We're going to lay out this block, but we're not going to sew it together just yet because we have another block to make. But this is what block A is going to look like. Very similarly to, actually, you know what, we should just sew this together because I realized the next block does not have a grid pattern. This block is going to get sewn together very similarly to the 4 patch, where we're going to essentially sew the rows together, or the columns together into rows, and then sew the rows together. So what we're going to do is we're going to take column 2, lay this over column 1 like this, and sew all the way down. And then we're going to add in that 3rd column. Okay? Yeah, nothing like an almost panic attack that I screwed up making the hourglass box and I didn't. That was like really close to being like, OMG, I can't believe I did that. But it was fine. No harm, no foul. I did it correct. So now that I have column 1 and column 2 together, there's a couple things that you can do. You can essentially say, all right, well, I'm going to press my seams now. Or you can just go ahead and sew your next thing if you would like. I'm going to go ahead and press my seams because it's a little easier to display. Sometimes when I'm sewing myself, I do not. I go straight into sewing in column 3 and then after that, pressing my seams. Oops. All right. So here is column 1 and column 2 finished, like so. And what we're going to do now, so if you notice, I didn't cut these apart. They still have chain piecing here. We're going to sew these like so, like that. So now we're going to go ahead and press all of the seams if you haven't yet. Okay. I alternate my seams inwards and outwards. So the top row, my seam goes out to the 4 patch. Oh, sorry. Yeah, out towards the 4 patch. My middle row, it goes towards the middle block. And then the outside row goes towards the 4 patch. So here is the block. We have essentially 3 rows that we're now going to essentially put right sides together and sew down, and then open it back up and then fold that over and sew down as well. This is where you can use fork pins or something if you would like to pin your block together. I typically don't pin unless it's this block assembly. Like up until now I haven't pinned, partly because my seams are, for the 4 patch, were really not that long. But for my pins, I like pinning the block assembly, and I pin on either side of my seam allowance. And I pinned a little further down today so I could go at full speed through that seam allowance. If you are pinning closer towards the edge, make sure you slow down before you hit the pin with your needle. The clover fork pins are thin enough to sew over if you don't hit it at 1,000 miles an hour. If you hit it slowly, it'll just slide on one side of the needle and be fine. However, if you hit it at full speed on your machine, you can throw your machine at a time, break your needle, and break your pin. All bad things. Alright, so now we are going to go ahead and press our block. And we have our month 2 block A done. Month 2 block B is a little harder. I will say, I will admit, it is a lot harder, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to break it down into a little bit of some steps before we make the whole quilt. Okay. The block A. Ta-da! Finished. Alright. Block B. First things that we're going to do. So remember how we had our background that we cut in half? We are going to make some flying geese out of this, okay? And that means we are going to take fabric D, and then these these are the ones that get cut in quarters that I accidentally did the background in. So we're going to take these and cut them in quarters. So again, align your ruler, cut one, cut the other without moving anything. Okay. That is going to get you these little awesome triangles. Okay. And what we're going to do with them is we are going to make a flying geese like so. Okay. So what I do is I essentially put these right sides together and I will sew down a 1/4 inch on this side. Okay. And then we will press these open towards the little wing. I will say you want to be a little bit careful with these, as when you cut 1/4 square triangles and 1/2 square triangles, you do have the possibility to warp your fabric just a little bit because it is on a bias edge. And then we have this one here. So right sides together again. We're going to sew down a 1/4 edge, 1/4 seam allowance down. And we are going to press open to finish out our flying geese. So the best part about this, where you're going to go, oh, cool, is I tell you how big this flying geese is supposed to be. It is a little goofy in terms of measurements. So you're going to want to make sure that you trim this flying geese down if you are off, okay? So this is here. And I want you to make sure that you have your flying geese in the correct spot. And you trim it down. It's close. It's just not always 100% correct, okay? So you have a little bit of wiggle room to trim up your flying geese. And magically, I've made 4 of them. Okay. So we are going to now make the inside of that block. So we have our little tiny squares that we made, that we cut before. We're going to grab one of the squares that go in the middle here. Let me double check that this is the right size. Should be the right size. Yep. Like so. And now we're going to sew this block together. Same thing like we did with the other block. We're going to web piece this, but because the center column is larger, I'm actually going to do 2 and 3 first and do something like this. Okay. So the reasoning why these are all a little off size is because this block is going to end up being on point inside of the larger block. Okay, because this is not month 2 block B. This is the inside of block B. So we are going to do that, and then we're going to now take column A and sew them on the other side. We are going to press our block in alternating directions. once we have our rows pressed, we're going to sew the top row to the middle and then the bottom row to the middle. Okay. You can also use fork pins here if you're uncomfortable holding your seams, but I tend to hold my seams since I have nested them together. Okay. And we're going to do that to the other side as well. And now we press these seams open. Okay. So we have the inside star of our block. That's going to go on point. Okay. Now you're probably like, Sherry, how do we do the rest of this? Okay. What we're going to do, we are going to take one of our big squares here. I believe this is the right one, at least. Nope. Where did I put it? Oh, that is the right one. Oh my goodness. I'm like, that is the right square. I was looking at the right square. So we have one of these. We're going to take our big quarter square triangles that I showed you how to cut before, and we are going to sew it something like this. Okay? And how do we do that? When you sew a triangle onto a square, you want to make sure that it becomes centered, right? Because you can't just start here, because otherwise you're going to end up with no seam allowance. So how do you actually center your triangle to your square? And what you do is you're going to fold your square in half and finger press that center section. Okay? You're going to line your point to that center and then the raw edge to the raw edge, like so. So you're going to essentially say, hey, my point's here, my raw edges are here, and I'm now going to sew down a 1/4 inch. Okay? This is one of those times that I'm going to tell you, do not eyeball this, okay? Now we're going to essentially press this open. Okay? And we're going to now add the second one here. And you're like, Sherry, you just ironed out your thing, and how the heck do I fold this? Well, trick is flip it over so you see the edge, and now you can fold this in half, like so. So now you have that center seam again, right sides together, point goes on that center seam, raw edges align, like so, and you can sew that down. All right, and then we're going to press that open. You're going to make 4 of these. 2 of them you're going to be done with. Okay, so I made a couple extra. I'm actually going to also chop off my seam allowance, or the dog ears here. You're not going to need them. Okay, so for 2 of these, you're done. Okay, ta-da, you have one here, you have one here. Okay, magic. We're going to now work on this corner and this corner. Okay, so we're actually going to move this over here so you can kind of see what we're trying to do here. So we have these, right? Now we also have a fabric A that needs to go here, and a fabric A that needs to go here. in a fabric. No, we don't. It's over here. I was like, if I put it over here, that makes them similar, which I know that's wrong. And then we also have background. Okay? So, the reason why I'm showing you this is if you made them all the same. I'm going to take the center ones out. The way I have this drawn, right, we have one that looks like this and one that looks like that. Okay? So you're going to make them where these are alternate from each other so you have a corner when you sew them to your block. Now, to align these, it's pretty easy, right? You just align the corners here, sew down a 1/4 inch, align the corners here, sew down a 1/4 inch, and off we go. So we're going to do that. Okay? And same thing here. And I sew them in the wrong way. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to alternate them. Whoops. I picked them up and put them on the wrong one. There we go. There was already a white one on that one. My bad. And then this one goes on this one. All right. We're going to press these open. And now we're going to actually do the block assembly because now we have our corners, our big corners, like so. And then we have our center. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to sew these together like so. We're going to press them towards the block because I pressed these out. So then we can nest to those seams, but we're going to first go ahead and sew these together. We're going to press these towards that center block. And then now we are essentially going to say, hey, we're going to go here. And because we have our seams that nest right here, our seams are going to nest, and then we're going to sew across. And we're going to sew the other side together. I actually think I screwed up a little bit on the other one. I was supposed to follow the inside and I didn't. I gotta fix the other side real quick because I kind of got really off, but I'm going to fix this real quick. This kind of got off, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Some odd reason, like my block in the middle got really funky. So I'm going to unpick that last stitch real quick and resew it. So now you have your block, and you have a little bit of dog ears on here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 12.5-inch ruler and align it up. Should just be perfect outside of your dog ears. And you'll go ahead and you'll trim up your block. Like so. Ta-da. And now you have your awesome month 2 block B. So you have 2 blocks this month to make. Block A and block B. And block B is significantly harder, just so you know. So give yourself a little bit of time, give yourself a little bit of grace, and just know that it's okay. Like, you're not going to notice it very much if you're slightly off. But there you have it. that is Wish month 2. I hope everyone enjoys this quilt top as much as I do. I think it turned out beautifully. It's a lot of purples and a little bit of blue. So I know purple is like a very divisive color. So like, I don't know if people love it or hate it, but I love how this quilt turned out. Again, if you would like a quilt kit, we have a couple of those still left in my shop. It will be with white background instead of what is in this original quilt, but that's okay. I don't know, I haven't decided. I think the white makes it a little bit more crisp than kind of what I originally chose. And then you can get the quilt pattern in my shop as well. So that is it for today. Next month, I believe it's going to be March 23rd, I believe is the next stream for month 3. And I will see you guys then. Bye-bye.